So welcome everybody. I'm sorry for those joining virtually. You only get virtual cookies, but for those here, we get the good stuff. So this is a kickoff to our research series, and this is a really fun way to get it started, despite Amineh unfortunately not feeling well, because we get to feature some of the fantastic participants in the Ostrom Summer Academy, which we inaugurated this last summer. And thank you for being the guinea pigs again, because it was just stellar. And thanks to Carrie on the line for doing so much to make it so successful as well. So today we're featuring one of these projects that was discussed during the academy, starting with Professor Ghorbani there, Amineh, who's an associate professor at the TPM faculty at Delft. Her main research expertise is using simulation models for studying institutional dynamics, which refer to as institutional modeling. And today they're discussing their paper on elaborating dynamics of human AI interactions with the IAD framework. So really, really excited to focus on this, Amineh. And like I said, did we lose Amineh?
Did we lose her?
Yeah.
Oh, you're there. Well done, you.
No, I'm here. I'm trying to share my screen, but for some reason I've lost the Zoom screen. So just give me a second.
Yeah, sometimes there's way too many going on. But we'll turn to that. Like I said, I'll ping Casey as well. And it's great to see everybody else on the line. Hello, Felipe. Hey, Brian, Eric. Eric, somebody was just singing the praises of your new book in my call right before this. So it's the word is out. So really, really well done on that again.
Well, thank you very much. That's great to hear.
Absolutely.
Go back on mute so the dogs doesn't bark. And
yeah, right. No worries at all.
Sorry, I'm just having problems with my PowerPoint. So maybe I should just get out and in again.
Yeah, if you would like to, that's completely fine. We can just take a few minutes to chat.
Yeah, the problem is that I don't see my PowerPoint when I bring up Zoom to share it. So I don't know.
Like when you click share, if you want to, Amineh, you can always email it to me as well, and I can pull it up on this side.
No, just give me a second. I'll just go out and come back in again, hopefully.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry about this.
No, don't worry about it. I'm trying to find Casey's email address.
Oh, and Sky, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can, Carrie. Yo, could you ping him? Is that possible?
I did. Yeah. He said he's having access problems, but he's on his way.
Okay, no, that's great. I'm sorry you have to do this while you're abroad, but thanks for your help. We're gonna get there, everybody. Yeah, I hope everybody's week's going okay so far. So far, so good. We do have, in terms of special events coming up, there's the Climate Governance Roundtable. That's just in a few weeks. That's going to be really neat because it's going to feature a lot of the main researchers, as well as some of the most active teachers in climate governance and climate change around campus. With Jess is organizing it with Sarah Mincy, and who else? David Kaniski is on that, Kelly Eskew, variety of cool folks. So I hope you can attend that. I think that's coming up late September. Which is we're almost there. So I think sometime in the next few weeks, I'll find the day, or maybe Carrie, you might remember when that is. I can't remember offhand. Yeah, no problem. We'll find out. But any other announcements from anybody else, like upcoming stuff that you think might be of interest, or? Yeah, please.
I'm presenting a in progress photo essay to the Kyoung-cheol forum on Friday.
Exciting.
So yeah, I'd appreciate any feedback on the project. So
if you oh, absolutely. Well, hey, come on. If you want to send it to who'd be the best? Either maybe send it to me and just CC like Carrie and David, and we'll get the word out. Okay, great. That'd be great. Yeah. Is that here on campus, like the photo?
Yeah, it's at the student building.
It's at the student building. Great. Yeah. That'd be awesome. We'll drive some traffic toward the pizza. That's great.
I bet she's having trouble getting back in. Zoom has been really picky.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, and Lavanya,
3 days.
it is going to be available online too.
Should we check the waiting room? Oh,
here's Amineh. Yeah, that's probably my fault. Probably trying to get back in for a second there. And everything that we do, just as a reminder, if you haven't checked in a little while, is up on the Ostrom Workshop YouTube channel. And David does a great job of ensuring that it gets up there quite quickly.
Looks like
I'm back.
Casey hadn't registered, so he's working on that.
Oh, I see. I see. No, well done. Okay. Yeah, we tried something new with that this year, so we'd love feedback with that too. Basically, you register for the whole series, which we never had done in the past. So that just automatically like populates on your calendar. And if you can, you just kind of hit a button or obviously come. We can see your full screen right now, Amineh.
Okay, that's good. At least that's an improvement because I had to restart my computer. It wasn't working. Okay, do you want me to present or should we wait for Casey?
Carrie, what's your sense? Is he almost in?
I would say go ahead and then
Yeah, I
that'll
think, given that we're about 10 minutes over, I think let's go ahead and just get started, Amineh, if that's okay.
Okay, so hello everyone. Sorry for the hiccup. I was saying that I have Corona right now, so I'm a bit brain dead, but I hope I can get the message across. So I'm one of the students of the workshop, the summer school, which was really nice and enjoyable. And instead of writing a paper, I just worked on a proposal that I was going to submit now. So just to give you a brief idea about what the call is about. So it's a Dutch grant. It's personal, so I have to write it myself. And it's about 800K, which means that I can hire up to 3 PhD students or 2 PhDs and 1 postdoc. And it's really focused on being extremely innovative and risky projects. So I have to like be a bit out of my comfort zone. So I'm just going to explain the proposal to you, and I hope to get some feedback from you on especially on the collective action part. So I'm just going to give you a background on this, on the proposal that I've written. It's about climate governance, and we know already that it's quite polycentric already. Lane Ostrom already wrote a couple of papers on climate change being a bottom-up process, climate governance, and so on. So it's really polycentric already, but the issue is that it's really chaotic at this point. And one of the most important nodes in this polycentric setting are the international cooperative initiatives, ICIs. And basically, they're just voluntary organizations where people, organizations, cities can join on a voluntary basis. And they kind of provide the basis to set climate targets and try to commit to them. So it's about target setting, but not always. And these ICIs, they include states and non-state actors. So, for example, even WWF is one of the organizers of one of these initiatives, but they also include businesses and municipalities, etc. The current structure of these ICIs is it's really top down in the sense that there's an organization, a set of people, NGOs, for example, come together, set these organizations, and they invite members to join. So the people who manage these organizations are different from the ones that have to commit to certain climate targets. So what happens is that there's a lot of greenwashing and free riding going on, especially with the presence of ICIs. Because, you just go and join an organization and you could just pretend that you're doing something, make a commitment, but it's not traceable. You just put the label on your products to to sell it as a green product. And there's also a lot of free riding because, if there are so many organizations, then you could just sneak your way out of this collective action problem of climate change. So I really am focusing on enterprises or the really big CO2 emitters, the big ones, so really big enterprises. And I want to see how I could tackle greenwashing and free riding, and just making these big enterprises more responsible for climate change, and make them join climate action. So the way I approach this proposal is that I claim that climate change as a whole is seen as a collective action problem in a polycentric setting, and there are lots of papers talking about the whole, like the global collective action problem of climate change. But nobody is looking into ICIs and their governance and the fact that they're also collective action at a lower scale, and they can be managed as such. So if you look at it, there's a lot of literature on ICIs, but there's nothing on the governance structure of these organizations. There's no institutional structure for them. They primarily focus on setting targets and assessment methods, but they don't really think about, membership, who can join, who not, and the sort of institutions that we need for collective action. And it's non-inclusive in the sense that those people who are the appropriators, or the people who have to follow the rules, are different from the ones that set the rules. And my claim is that because of this non-inclusive nature, enterprises, especially the ones that want to have a power in decision making, are not motivated enough to join. And even if they join, they don't stick to commitments, because it's just a matter of logic of consequence than logic of appropriateness. So yeah, it's just they're still looking at it as a voluntary thing that they can misuse or not use at all. So my goal is to define institutional design principles for the governance of ICEIs with the aim to foster an enterprise tipping point. I don't know if you're familiar with social tipping points. It's a hot topic in climate change literature. And it's basically, everybody's talking about how do we create social tipping points to speed up climate change mitigation. But I call it an enterprise tipping point because I'm focusing on enterprises, and I want the enterprise or the corporate world to have a tipping point where climate action becomes a norm rather than just something that they can decide to commit to or not. So in terms of methods, I don't know how much time I've been using, so I'll try to be quick. So as I said, I can hire 3 PhDs, but I'm hiring 1 postdoc and 2 PhDs. So one of the sub-projects would be about ICI governance up to date. So just learning from best practices, seeing who's done what, to see whether we can extract some meaningful institutional mechanisms that are already in place. Then my part is to really learn from the collective action, or I don't know. That's one of my questions for you, actually. So what do I call the Ostrom area of research? Is it institutional research, collective action, public administration? I don't know. So that's one question I would like to ask your help with. So I'll just be looking into whether the Ostrom's design principles also hold for ICI governance and so on. So just learning from that side of this theory as well. And so the SBTI, the Science-Based Target Initiative, is the biggest ICI currently in the world. It's very prominent across enterprises. So it already has more than 1,500 companies joining it, and it's considered the most successful one. So I was lucky enough to make a link with them, and I'm actually going to do field research there with one of my PhDs. So just really staying there and looking at the members, etc., and doing action research as well. So testing the design principles eventually. And having a simulation background, so my second PhD would really focus on how we can scale up these ICIs and how the uptake of climate action across enterprises will look like. So what are the conditions for the emergence of an enterprise tipping point, basically? So in terms of scientific impact, the design principles and the conditions for tipping points will contribute to climate governance. for the collective action research domain or your domain, again, I don't know what to call it yet. So far, collective action has really been among individuals, and I want to see how collective action would play out when there are composite actors and especially profit-based actors involved. And also being an active member of the IGRI with Saba, I would like to also provide a methodology for extracting informal institutions from surveys and field observations, because there's a lot being done with the institutional grammar on formal institutions, but not much on the informal side of the story. And for social simulation, yeah, I don't want to go into the details of that, but basically I have two contributions to the social simulation field as well. So the questions that I have for you, the first one I already raised a couple of times. So what do I really call this area of research that I'm presenting in? Second, I would like to know if my contributions in your area make sense regarding composite actors and collective action among them. Another thing that I'm struggling with is whether to call like these businesses enterprise or cooperatives or businesses or companies. I'm just struggling with a name, so that would also be appreciated. And so there's a whole body of literature on organizational management, which is quite far from the collective action literature. And I'm wondering to what extent I actually need to connect. So sorry about the background noise. My dog is barking. So that was it. Thank you. I hope I got the message across a bit. I tried to be very brief.
You did exceptionally well, Amineh, even despite COVID. So congratulations there. And for what it's worth, Casey did join. So I didn't know if you wanted him to, or what if you had planned to have him either take over part of that presentation or kind of elaborate on some of those points before we turn to these questions.
No, we didn't really communicate with each other. So.
Oh, okay. Well, remind me, was Casey's presentation entirely separate? Was that right, Carrie? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Great. I'm sorry about that, Amineh. Let's turn to these then, and then I'll properly introduce Casey in just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. So welcome, Casey. Sorry for the hassles there, but this is first off really, really helpful. Thank you so much for teeing this up. It's important work, Amineh. So I'll be just kind of monitoring chat and monitoring the room here, but you did a wonderful job of already kind of queuing up the questions. I think we could probably spend the whole next 15 minutes just talking about the first bullet point, because you're going to get different answers depending on who you talk to in the room here and on virtual room and the real room. So I would love to hear people's thoughts on that. I mean, to tee up some of them, Amineh, and maybe folks can elaborate more on these as they would like to, but the Bloomington School of Political Economy is going to be one of them. And the teaching page of the workshop has, some materials, even a short webinar on these different topics. So that could be one way to phrase this. You mentioned polycentricity a lot as well. So, polycentric governance broadly might be the most relevant piece that you're considering here, but you touched on several others, so it wouldn't be only that. And then, I mean, there's so many, and maybe even Bernie, like if you wanted to jump in, there's so many ways that these have been packaged over the years. Those are just a couple that kind of rank. I feel like the most well-known, especially in the EU, would probably be either polycentricity. I don't know how well-known the Bloomington School is as a label in Europe.
But what about? I mean, so it lies in the field of public administration, right? If I just want to be a bit broader.
Oh, even public choice, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that kind of connects to your other point about whether to loop and how to loop in these other literatures around organizational theory and management. Because you're right, there hasn't been a ton of interdisciplinary work that I'm aware of that connects that to some of these broader points around complexity or polycentricity. I'm even thinking of some of our colleagues over at Kelly who do organizational theory. So I mean, we could easily, and some of them are workshoppers, we can connect you after this as well, Amineh, with some folks that have really, delved into the organizational management work to see if there might be some connections there. I did a piece a few years ago looking at benefit corporations and using common pool resource theory to describe a bit about how they're structured and what they're doing. And we did actually compare US and EU approaches in that. So I mean, maybe some of that could be helpful. We even use some of the design principles there, so I can send you a link to that.
Oh, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. I think I'm monopolizing too much though. What do other people think?
I have some comments, but I
Gustavo,
don't
please.
know.
And you could do that or just comments first, and then we can turn to more of these. Yeah.
Do you
please.
want me to
I can
share?
answer
Stop
all the
sharing my
questions that maybe.
Yeah, right.
So couple of ideas. It's whenever you have a collective action problem, I think it's good to start with what is the common goal that this group wants to advance, because essentially that's the key nature of collective action problems. It's you want to advance a common goal, but the issue is how you do that, or who pays the cost of the organization, who pays the cost of advancing that common goal. So and in this organization, will people meet? I don't know. Sometimes I have doubts that is there a common goal or not. So I don't know. I would start trying to clarify what is that common goal that they are trying to advance. No. The second thing is people working on institutional stuff. Usually they use the kind of this broad label organization to refer to very different animals. It's like corporations, universities. It's like you can use that. I don't know. It has problems, but definitely I think for many people it would be like the kind of the big label inside which you can put many different things. And I think my third comment is maybe I got it wrong. Most likely I got it wrong, but I think in your previous slide, you mentioned something about 70-something% of global emissions coming from 100 corporations. I could check that number. I don't think that's correct, essentially. So most likely it's not. So essentially, you are talking about global emissions at the world level. Just 100 companies.
It's global. It's actually it's from 2017, and the report looked at the supply chain of these 100 companies. So it's not the company, but the whole supply chain that provides for that company. I could share you the link if I could find it right now.
I would be very careful checking. And then on top of that is they are producing some final good, and people are consuming those final goods. So who is responsible for the final emissions? You shut down all that supply chain that is 70% of the emissions, you pretty much shut down all the world economy. So essentially, I would be very careful how you frame that thing, essentially.
And we're going to save the chat for you, Amineh, but Eric, you were making some good points about tying this to Ollie's work, Williamson, on transaction costs and economics. So that could be that could be another way to go about it. And to Gustavo's point, I mean, even there's a lot of overlap between, civil society as a way to couch this and the private sector, like you're discussing as well. So labels matter, and this is a grant proposal, right? So you want to make sure that it's responsive to the actual, I'm not sure what the call itself, what kind of keywords they're using, but the academic scholarship to come out of this is one thing, but your proposal is another. Other questions or comments, responses? We are, and thanks, you probably saw that, Amineh, but on the 22nd, we do have that climate governance roundtable. So I know Polycentric is going to come up. So that could be a neat opportunity, either if you're able to beam into it, or if you're not feeling well, especially just, watching it after the fact, and we can connect you more.
So it's 22nd of September?
I think that's what Carrie put in the chat
It's
here.
the workshop colloquium, right?
Yeah.
Or what is it?
It's
Yes.
separate. It's run if you're talking about the one that Jess is setting up, it's on the 22nd at 1 o'clock. So that's different from the colloquium.
Okay.
It's a round table.
Yeah.
And how do I find the link to join?
I will send it to you.
Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, we do these kind of roundtables on different topics occasionally. And in this case, there'll be a theoretical component because it's research, but it's also reflecting on like the IRA that was just passed here in the States, as well as on the upcoming Conference of the Parties through the UN FCCC. So, and honestly, some of this dovetails well with our conversation on Monday, because that similarly, there was a lot of discussion around consumer certifications, and in that case, lead building standards as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, some of Matt's work could be useful, or even just kind of viewing that recording, and we can get you in touch with him. But yes, I think both of you had.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, please.
Oh, just me.
Students, okay, yeah.
I'm curious about, and maybe this isn't something that's in the call, but I'm curious about the outcomes that you're hoping for, of like what sort of outputs you're envisioning producing, and like who the audiences are for those outputs.
Yeah. So the output is the thing that I'm selling is the design principles for organizing and governing ICIs, because it doesn't exist. And I've already communicated with the SBTI, so I'm actually going to implement it to show that, look, you get an improvement or more businesses joining if you're more inclusive in setting your agenda and institutions with the businesses who are the members. So the design principles would be like an immediate outcome that's going to be implemented during my proposal, during my project. So within 5 years, and this enterprise tipping point is it's like an outlook. So that's like the final ambition of upscaling, and this is what I say that okay, you have to upscale. So the call, so there's nothing in the call. It's just like yearly you can apply for this grant. But it's more scientific in the sense that like the methodologies that I present are actually very important. So innovations in terms of methodology and theory. Yeah, and maybe that there was this first question about what's the common goal for joining, and that's exactly the point that I'm tackling, because enterprises do have some incentive to join these initiatives, either because they want to satisfy their customers, or the fact that the government, so the state is putting regulations and they will be more strict. So it's like, you find your way out of taxes by just doing some charity work which you don't believe in. So that's something that's also happening as well. So you just join an initiative so that you don't have to follow the regulations that the government is putting on you. So there is a common goal, but the common goal is to commit to climate action, but whether what the motivation behind it is quite different. So I'm wondering whether this would be called a collective action or not in the end.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, feel free, Joyce.
So I have a question around this. You said the very hot area of the social tipping point, and I'm kind of interested if you are going to delve into how does the social tipping point work on the enterprise tipping point? Because if you have your employees wanting this kind of stuff, it seems to me like there's an interaction there that could be very positive. And I just wondered if you were going to look at that, and I don't even know how you'd look at it, but the data for that. And then, and the other thought is actually Scott mentioned the talk on Monday where LEEDS, which is the green building initiative that started in the 90s, has become probably one of the most successful things in this whole area of green stuff happening. And a lot of it was for marketing. That's why they joined it. And so I'm just wondering if, you're going to include, what are the positive things that would say to an enterprise, this is a thing to join, not just greenwashing, or maybe that's the first way in and then their employees are pushing them. It's like, how do you bring it all together to make the presentation that we're on a path?
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So so my hypothesis is that it's not just self-organized. So it's not just self-organization among individuals that gives them more motivation to be involved in collective action. It could also be among enterprises. So like I'm going to test whether inclusion, so enterprises joining collective action and making decisions collectively, actually influences their motivation to commit to climate action. That's kind of like the explicit hypothesis that I've stated in my proposal. But then there's like just like this, I don't know if you're familiar with these reasons to join among enterprises, whether it's logic of consequence or logic of appropriateness. And what I'm saying is that I want to change the logic of consequence. So doing it because of self-interest, cost and benefit, regulations of the government, greenwashing, whatever. So that's a logic of consequence. How I can change it to logic of appropriateness, where you do it just because you feel it's the right thing to do. And for that to happen, and the norm has to emerge. So climate action has to become a norm among the corporates in the corporate world. And this is what I want to study. So I say my starting point is the ICI, because I say it already exists. There are already a lot of enterprises joining for various reasons. And I want to see whether, starting from ICIs, I would actually be able to change this logic of enterprises for conducting climate action and making that a norm in the society, in the business world. So it's really like quite hypothetical, but the call asks for things that are a bit unrealistic or out of reach.
That's fair. Well, I mean, this is just terrific, and needless to say, we wish you all the luck in this proposal.
Thank you.
And I'm going to put one last link up for you, because as we were discussing this further, it made me think of Angie and I's recent paper that we called Cyber Silent Spring, which was looking at lessons from the sustainable movement and applying it to some hot topics in cybersecurity and data governance, and including for both consumers and investors. So looking at some of these different certification schemes, as well as some disclosure requirements from the SEC here in the States and the European Commission. So some of that maybe could be helpful for this particular one too. Happy to talk about it more. But we can maybe loop back to you. I just want to make sure that we have time for Casey as well, if that's okay.
Yes, thanks a lot for your feedback. That was great.
Oh, no, not at all. And I'm so sorry again, you did this when you weren't feeling well. But
that's okay.
You could never tell. So well done. So next up, guys, we have Casey Kim. And Casey, sorry for the hassles in joining. Casey is a doctoral student in the Department of Public Administration and Policy at the University of Georgia. And his research interests include bureaucracy, motivation, and institutional analysis, another Ostrom Summer Academy participant. So Casey, good to see you again. And if you'd like to, please feel free to give your opening remarks here, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much for having me here. And then I'm sorry for being late. I mean, I had another meeting on campus, and then after arriving home, all of a sudden my laptop just started like more than 30-minute update. So
that's what you want.
Gosh,
yeah.
It just finished like a couple of minutes ago. So yeah.
No problem.
Yeah,
no problem at all.
So yeah. So let me just start the presentation right away, because we are running out of time, I guess. So sharing the screen. Can you see my slides?
Yep, perfect. We sure can.
Yes. By the way, I was in the during the Amineh's presentation. It's glad to meet you again. And then I was on my phone. So it was interesting that she was dealing with enterprises cases, and I'm more of dealing with the governmental cases. So but so I'm basically dealing with my key focus here. Let me just see do you see the presentation mode now?
Yeah, that's perfect, Casey.
Yes. So my key point here is human AI interaction, and then how their decision-making interaction, their decisional interactions can impact each other. And then I'm trying to investigate their relationship with the IAD framework more to perform more systematic research. So the point here is there is an increasing notion of AI as institutional decision-making agent. So my work, as Dr. Shackelford explained, introduced myself. I'm based in studying the public administration, but more of like management. And my work has been referring to a lot of research from the management information systems and also behavior scientists from like nature. So they are focusing on AI as an agent, but we are not really talking that AI can be sentient or something. We are just focusing on decision-making context itself. And in that context, management scholars and behavior scientists are recognizing AI can be just agent. And then they are also acknowledging that AI's impact on human beings, their cognitive process and outcomes, and also we human beings are also engineering or moderating how AI systems work. So to that extent, two agents are having mutual impacts on the cognitive dimensions. So I just talked about the key point here, two key points here, agentic approach and neo ecosystem. So how the two different decision-making agents can impact their own cognitive dimensions. And again, the cognitive dimension here is not that, I'm not talking that AI can be really cognitive or something. Well, some neuroscientists are arguing that way, but the point here is that under cognitive dimension, human beings and AI can impact each other. So that's the key point here. And then there are also saying that we really need to understand these things in a systemized framework, but they are, the behavioral scientists, for instance, from Nature, the title of the paper is Machine Behavior, Ramhan et al. 2019. And then the agentic approach, you may refer to the Murray et al. 2021 from Academy of Management Review or MISQ journals. So they are really arguing we need more systemized framework to understand this new phenomena better, but we really haven't had a specified framework. And I thought the IAD framework can be really useful to specify and also expand the scope. And I'm trying to apply the understanding to a case of cybersecurity because, as the physical and digital domains are increasingly highly integrated, the better enterprises of governmental or business, the private firm businesses can be really critical to secure the cybersecurity. And then cybersecurity area, the attack side, they are increasingly using the AI stuff, but at the same time, the defense side, like high reliability organizations like nuclear plant or aircraft carriers, which are really susceptible to really tiny cyber breaches, they are increasingly using AI stuff to have more expedited response to the cyber attacks. The thing is, both sides are using AIs and human beings at the same time. They are collaborating AIs, and then how we are going to operate the systems and how the operational outcomes can impact the new ecosystem. So, and then I thought the IAD framework can be really perfect to accommodate that kind of ideas and then understanding that we are really needing to have. And then I really focus on the action area at this point. And actors, in terms of decision making, I consider AI can be actor at the same time in reality. And then action situation is going to be more specified as follows in a few minutes. But at the same time, I also consider different levels of governance. So because I'm management scholar, although I'm public administration side dealing with the political environment at the same time, but I'm more focused on the collective choice level and at the same time the operational level. And constitutional level is related, but my core the key part of analysis will be on the collective choice level and operational level. And then collective choice level, let me just skip that for later slide for further explanation. But so here the actor and accident situation and how the levels of governance can dynamically and iteratively related. Those are key points in my in my investigation. And then this is very interesting part. So rule development and action selection. The management scholars are really specifying the decision-making processes and phases grounded in rule development and action selection. And action selection is grounded in the rules, which is already developed. So it's more of the specification of the rules. And then the thing is, especially in case of unsupervised learning, the AI systems can actually develop rules. Then human beings sometimes further develop their actions based upon the rules, or sometimes AIs, especially in case of like supervised learning, AIs develop further actions based upon the rules, which is generated by human beings. So the thing is, I'm not going to really specify the dynamic phases here, but depending on the combination of who develop rules and who further specify actions, the decisional situation can be categorized by assisting or augmenting or arresting and automating. So the thing is, you know, in some cases, human beings are developing their actions grounded upon the rules which is already developed by AI system. That means arresting here means human beings the specification of other actions cannot be, you know, supersede some boundaries of the rule protocol boundaries, which is developed by AI. Then our actions actually can be arrested by AI at that situation. So again, I'm not going to go further that much, but these are very interesting and really critical moment that we need to pay attention to. And then again, I'm trying to investigate those decisional processes and outcomes in a multi-layered and dynamically iterative phases of the rule development and action selection. You know, the constitutional level is the ultimate phase of the rule development. And then collective choice level, it's specifying the rules, and operational level, it's further specified dimensions of the rule. The rule sort of implementation or action selection. And then, you know, at the same time, I acknowledge that organizational approach may have limitation in terms of the rule specification cannot be always completely implemented. That's a canonical findings from the policy implementation failure literature. I'm particularly interested in using the IAD framework to elaborate how organization sometimes fails in their functioning. But at the same time, I also sort of acknowledge that centralization or sort of rule setting and authority transferring from top level to the bottom level, it's inevitable in some cases. So I'd welcome to have your criticism on this idea or approach. But I'm kind of trying to incorporate or merge the IAD framework approach to sort of the organizational mechanisms in terms of hierarchy and the necessity, at the same time, the limitation of the hierarchy approach. I think that's the basic idea. An action arena and pattern of interactions, they are just reflecting what I just talked about before. And then the key thing here is the use of AI may be, I mean, the outcome may not be aligned with what we expected. So that's the value alignment is more of like a technical term from the computer science. And then it's to more specifically explain it, it will require like explaining the reverse engineering stuff, but I'm not going to go that further. But the point here is the value outcome that we expected when it comes to using AI for attack in case of the cybersecurity attack or defense, maybe the outcome may not be aligned with. And then sometimes our decisions is arrested by AI's the rule or protocol development and how we're going to interact in specified situations. And then also, you know, those things need to be understood in the ecosystem perspective. So this is the key approach, how to apply to understand the cybersecurity. As I talked to before, the real, you know, the physical and digital domains are more increasingly highly integrated. So the cyber breach it's increasingly critical. And then the thing is, especially in cybersecurity area, the AI is being more increasingly utilized, and it's really critical because human beings are more of relying on AI for to be better prepared for unexpected and complex attacks. But I told you, the AI should not be dominating all the task accomplishment processes, and human beings need to be involved in. Then again, as I told you, their interactions is not going to be just simplified. It's going to be super complex. Just as you already can see in the 4 combination cases, the resting as automating, augmenting, or assisting decisional phases, but the real cases could be much more complicated. So that's one part that I'm still working on. How much time? Yeah, I think.
Much, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I'm
Never enough.
Yes. So the thing is, I'm this actually the reason why I'm using cybersecurity is first, that's one of the area that AI is being more expeditedly utilized, and then as it is, it's critical. And then so I'm kind of trying to. My real focus here is to kind of have a better understanding in terms of framework. And then I'm kind of trying to specify the understanding in case of cybersecurity. So actually, my real goal is not really specifying all the cybersecurity, because I realized cybersecurity area itself is huge. So I thought I'd better just focus on the malware risks, and also even in case of dealing with the malware risks more technically. I joined the Georgia Tech Cybersecurity Institute. I just realized it's a huge area. So I just realized I cannot deal with all of them. So even in the deception cases, there were a whole lot of things that I needed to consider. So I'm happy to get some advice from Dr. Shekel for later. So I'm kind of trying to specify the application of the understanding to the cybersecurity area, even in that specified context. But I'm still working on developing the understanding and the reflection, accident situation, actors, that's a key part. Rules, I try to understand how the rule formulation and action selection can be iteratively and dynamically understood on the different levels of governance. So we're running out of time. I think that's pretty much a bit, and then I'd be happy to help have your criticisms or guidance or help. So thank you very much.
That was great, Casey. And we didn't give either Casey or Amineh a proper round of applause. So well done, you both. I realized too late that I switched the order in terms of teeing you up. Amineh, obviously that was Casey, your presentation title. So, but that was great. I put some links up that we can talk more about, Casey, but I want to make sure we turn to others first, including we had a great AI and machine learning speaker to kick off the Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research speaker series last Thursday, Dr. Hiram Anderson. So I put a link up to his talk. And also we have a new faculty colleague who focuses squarely on cybersecurity and AI, Sagar Samtani. So I'd love to introduce you to him as well. I think you guys would get a lot out of touching base. And the last thing I'll note before, because I want to hear it from everybody else, Dan Cole had a good chapter that I used when I was looking at the evaluative criteria component of the IAD framework in that Cyber Peace book a few years ago. Wow. I think it's chapter, I'll have to bug Dan to find the title of it, but if you look at chapter, I think it's 2 of my Governing New Frontiers book, I did the same. I tried to do something similar where I dove into, well, what the heck does this mean for the evaluative criteria? In this case, is applied to something like cybersecurity and peace. So some of that could be helpful as you're thinking through, the AI implications here. But
yeah, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
No, happy to help more. But I know, Angie, you were nodding, and I know this is really relevant to a lot of what you're doing. That's right. So students first. That's right. Yes, exactly. Please.
Nervous to go first with so many cybersecurity experts in the room.
No.
I am, this is not my area of expertise, but my understanding, which is very small, of AI is that at this point, it is all trained by humans, that in some ways AI is an extension of human decisions. And so I'm intrigued by your decision to treat AI as an autonomous, separate actor from humans rather than as an extension of specific humans' decisions. and work. And I don't know, I worry about the erasure of that very human decision-making in treating AI as truly autonomous. Apologies if that's a very settled issue.
Oh, no, it's a great point to clarify. And I don't know how deep you wanted to get in neural networks right now, Casey. It can be a bit of a black box with how they actually function. But if you care to respond, please.
Yeah. So that's a question, right? So thank you very much. I mean, that's a really fundamental question when it comes to having the presentation to other people in other fields. But so I mean, you'd be happy to check the reference, the literature from the Nature, like Rawan, it's RAWHWAN et al. 2019, and then it's really well elaborating how AI can actually impact human beings, and they are recognizing AI as agent. Because first, the thing is why AI is different from other technologies we have ever had, and then why it can be a sort of decision-making agent. They are not really, I mean, the computer science area, they no longer just explain why it's agent. They are just calling it as agent. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that even in case of supervised learning, human beings are using, I mean, you know, even statistical analysis is really discretionary, even in many moments. And then, so in case of supervised learning, they are processing the dimensional data by its protocol, and sometimes it makes its own decisions. And even in case of unsupervised learning, you know, in that case, we are just providing the baseline of the protocol, and then it just learned the patterns. And then reinforcement learning, in that case, it's not really just about programming. It's literally they're competing each other. The different system, the ML parts, they are competing each other to have very higher incentives. And then they are literally competing each other and reinforcing, and they are all of a sudden making certain decisional outcomes that human beings cannot really understand how it actually happened. So to that extent, that actually makes decisions on its own, almost. So I'd rather say human intervention can be substantially limited, I had to say. So it's not really saying AI, it can be a just natural being that can make a certain decisions all by itself. I'm not saying that, but to the extent the decision making itself, we are just providing very limited ground of decisional protocol, and it further developed by itself through the convoluted neural networks or reinforcement processes. And from that moment, it just all by itself. So that's the key point, I guess. Is that answering your question? Yes.
Makes them that much more terrifying.
Well, I don't know if somebody else.
Any other students first, then we'll turn to. That was great though. Okay, going once, going twice. Andrew, you're good? Okay, all right, please, Gustavo, yeah.
Again, I'm very far from an expert on this area. But something that I was thinking is, to some extent, from my perspective, it's not that important if how you treat this is as a tool or as an agent, essentially. We have a lot of examples of situations in which you want to treat some variables as exogenous, and then how people react, even if we know that they are determined by human decisions. I don't know, whatever. If you are thinking about a small country, for example, maybe the international interest rate is highly determined by the Fed. We know that that's a human decision, but for this small developing country, this is kind of a given, no? So I wouldn't be that. It's not a problematic from my perspective. It's the key thing is when we want to treat a variable as something exogenous, or when we want to treat that as something endogenous that is entering into the interaction. So, and I think that depends on what you're studying. It's like, given what an AI is doing, you want to see how people interact, given the protocol and the decisions already involved in the AI, you can treat it just essentially as an environment or a tool or as an exogenous variable. But if you want to really model or understand how the AI will interact and change behavior and change decisions when people change decision, then you should treat it as an agent. So the key thing is what you are trying to model, no? So that's point one, no? The second one I think is from my perspective very interesting. Like, well, still from an institutional and legal perspective, they are very different AIs from I don't know legal entities, no? So if there is a mistake associated with an AI, who is liable? The AI, I don't think so. So it's the company that owns, the person that owns. So if the AI is generating some profits, so who collects? So I think from my perspective, the most interesting part there is either exogenous or endogenous. That depends on what you are interested in. And once you treat this as endogenous, so then how they interact with human entities and organizations, no? Because there is when I think the juicy problems starts, no?
Mm-hmm.
We're almost out of time, Casey, but please do respond. And then if there's any other final reflections or questions you had, feel free.
Yes, so thank you very much for the comments. And then the endogeneity, endogenous and exogenous, the features. I'd say the thing is, it can be both ways. And the legal perspective, I'd be happy to talk about that a little later. But the thing is, let me just clarify how AI things and human beings can autonomously interact in terms of having mutual cognitive impact. So first thing, AIs, you use Facebook apps or other apps or some recommendation systems. Already those decisions are being made by AI systems. So and then when it comes to having some news or article, our decision just go from there in many cases. So that's an evident case of how AI impact human cognitive decision-making process and even outcomes. And then on the other side, AI is eventually just a computational system making predictions, statistical prediction actually. And then that is eventually grounded by the data. And then that data is already eventually generated by our human beings. So that to that extent, how AI is, except for the neural network or the protocol development, the protocol itself, like how computationally AI works, except that side, the eventual outcome is grounded in the data that we human beings have generated. So that means use of the AI is accumulating more data, which is grounded in certain data. And then nowadays, AI systems are more developed in Western developed industrial countries. That means they are also using more data from that cultural or social backgrounds. That means the use of AI systems, I acknowledge that the computer scientists and engineers are trying to fix that problem, but still it's a evident problem that use of AI can actually aggravate the bias or racial discrimination stuff. So use of AI system can be endogenously understood, but at the same time, it can be exogenously understood. So it's a really complex problem to that end. They are having mutual cognitive impacts. But I'd be happy to discuss that later on because we're running out of time. And the legal extent, the Rohan et al., that's also explaining a good point. They are just seeing it as a kind of animal. So we are using sort of animal, but we are not asking responsibility for the animal. That goes to the owner. But I know there are also different points. For instance, in South Africa, there was a AI system that made the invention that created that performed some invention, and who is the creator? And then they were limitedly acknowledging or kind of trying to starting to acknowledge the AI system can be a creator. But I know there are legal disputes that could be really fascinating point, but the conservative viewpoint could be like AI system is at best a kind of animal that we can use, and then the responsibility goes to the human beings who developed it. So, but that can be also controversial point. But that's my answer at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic, Casey. Obviously part of a much longer conversation, but we're thrilled to get it started. Thanks again to you. Thanks again to Amineh. Maybe one final round of applause for both. Really important work. Best of luck to
Thank you for
both.
having
Feel
us.
better. Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course. Of course, yeah. Thanks a lot. And Casey, I put one last link up there. David Crandall is the new head of our AI center here at IU. So likewise, if you want to ping me, I'll put you guys in touch. He's a really nice guy. He does a lot of work on computer vision and some governance work too. So
Yeah, I just copied all of them. I actually wanted to visit there, but I need to have
yeah.
a critical authorization. So maybe next time I will just email